Welcome to Healing Your Family Legacy, here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Innovative, evidence-based recovery that helps to identify intergenerational trauma, allowing for freedom and embracement of the healing process. Today, episode 142, Grace and Mercy. And now your host, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee.
This is Dr. Donna. Thank you for listening to my podcast and welcome back. First, I want to perhaps apologize a little bit for my last one. I was in the throes of COVID, which is really in the throes of something. I tried to talk about things that I think are important, but I know that I was probably struggling a little bit. So if you thought I was struggling a little bit, it's because I was. And that kind of leads me into what I want to talk about today. And the first part of this is mercy. As you also may have, I might have said this, I might not have said this last time, or the time before, but my wife's mother had just died as well. We had a bit of a trifecta there with both of us having COVID and then having our mother die of COVID. And it all started while we were on vacation. So, wow, what a great time. But when her mother died, she did all the right things, of course, because she is a person who's able to do a lot of right things. She called the Social Security Administration, told them. She called all her doctors, told them. She immediately started taking care of business. And I was pretty amazed. Of course, she didn't have a whole bunch of siblings to deal with. She had one, and he came, and it was quite wonderful that he was able to spend some time with us. But the two of them worked together to get things in shape. Now you're probably wondering what this has to do with mercy. Well, while they were going through their mother's stuff, and there wasn't much because over time she had gotten rid of a lot, which is what a lot of older people do. I've done it myself. But there were still things that, because they respected mother's boundaries, even though my wife was taking care of her most of the time, respected the boundaries of her privacy. There were things that they didn't know about until she died, which is usually the way it goes. And one of the things that they found was this very, very, very old Bible that she had, that is so old that we looked and looked and looked, and we could not find a publication date. So that's how old this Bible is. And so what she wrote in the Bible is what really caught my attention. And because these are words, I talked about, words have meaning last time. These are just two words, but they're so powerful. And they are grace and mercy. And if you were listening to me last time when I had COVID, thank you. And, that was quite merciful of you, because mercy means that you don't get what you deserve, that you're not getting what you deserve. You've heard people say that they're throwing themselves at the mercy of the court. This usually means that, yes, I did it. I deserve to be punished, or I deserve to have a life sentence, or but I'm throwing myself at the mercy of the court. And, basically asking for please don't give me what I deserve. Now, I think what I've noticed over the many years that I've been an adult and noticing things more is that, this idea that, asking for mercy, asking for not getting what you deserve doesn't happen as often as it used to. And I wondered, now what in the world does that mean? I mean, people are still doing things that they might have really harmful consequences for, but they're not asking for mercy. They're not asking to, I know I deserve that. Please reconsider. Please don't do this. I would be, grateful. There's that grace thing. I would be grateful if you would reconsider. In our culture, it's kind of come to the place, well, if you don't like what I did, too bad for you. It's like not about I did it. I'm throwing myself at your mercy. Please don't give me what I deserve. It's more this like, I really, I did that thing. So what? It's like, I don't deserve any consequence. And if you people don't like it, oh, well, I hear that a lot. I hear people say, oh, well, too bad for you that you don't like the fact that I ripped you off, or that you don't like the fact that I think I'm your friend, but I ignore you when you need me the most. Oh, well, too bad for you. This does not make for an enlightened culture. It doesn't even make for a quote unquote, air quotes, Christian culture. This is not what it was about. It's like about taking accountability for what you've done, and it's just fine to ask for mercy. So mercy is not getting what you deserve. Like, whoa, I really dodged a bullet there. It happens so often. It's alarming to me, because we are supposed to be, I hear it all the time, we're primarily Christian people, but it doesn't matter if we're Christians or Jews, or if we have a Muslim faith or whatever. It's all, there's always a part that talks about mercy, giving people mercy. Like if someone, if someone has done something to you that, you can decide or help decide what's going to happen, you can show some mercy there. Okay. I remember in my own life, my dad's cousin's daughter was abducted from a family event. And she was 12 when that happened. And it was a horrible thing that happened to her. It took us 3 years and much money hiring private investigators and all those things that people do. And, taking us on wild goose chases. It was just, I have great compassion for people who go through this. It's not something you quote unquote recover from, right? 3 years down the road, this serial killer, his wife, told on him. And that, he used to drive around in a van, and there's even books written about him. He's a jerk. Sorry. He used to drive around in a van and abduct people, women, and he would torture them and then murder them and leave them someplace. And that's what had happened to my my relative. And the amount of pain and anguish that caused for everybody was kind of over the top. Initially, I know for me, I wanted to go in that courtroom and just kill him. And that was my reaction. I wasn't living there at the time. I had been when it happened, but I wasn't living there at the time. And I was part of that. It's like I had psychics contact me and say, oh, this is where she is. And, my cousin and I one time went out in the middle of the freaking desert with a shovel because some psychic had stopped into my office and told me all this information. And, off we went. My cousin and I, in his truck off to the desert to dig around in the desert at this place where she said she knew where she was. And it was, she obviously wasn't there. However, he had, I don't need to go into grim detail because it'd give you nightmares, but he had tossed her in the desert, just not there. Anyway, over time, I realized that my anger at him, my absolute total anger, I wanted to kill him, was, invading my dreams at night. Was, I had images of what had happened to her anyway that were not worse than what actually happened to her. And so, getting through all this, I was pretty newly sober, and I heard a lot of people talk about grace and mercy when I was first in the program. And so I thought, I believed that. I thought, by holding on to this anger is killing me. I dream about it. I think about it everywhere I go. I try and figure out ways I can get to this guy while he's serving a life prison sentence. And, at some point he was supposed to be executed. Never was, by the way. He died of cancer in prison. Anyway, I got to the point where I wanted to show him mercy. Part of it was my spiritual beliefs, and part of it was that I knew, because I had talked to people and read about him and was set to actually do a dissertation about him. Glad I didn't do that. But I realized, as much as I really struggled with it, that this guy had pretty much been set up from his childhood trauma to do this. In fact, one of the books written about him is called, and there's two books. It's called Sins of the Father. And there's two books. One is about him, okay? I can't tell you which one it is right now, but it's about him. His father was a murderer, and he, abandoned this boy, and this boy had a terrible life, because his mother was not a whole lot better, but, he was basically set up. And if you listened to my podcast in the past, you might remember that it was called Healing Your Family Legacy. And this was a family legacy. And I knew it because of my work. I knew that this was true. And so I thought, I want to show that man some mercy. First, I don't want to carry this anger around for the rest of my life because I'll just be angry all the time. And I know, because of my line of work, that carrying that kind of anger around will kill you. One way or another, it will kill you. So I set out to find, where he was in prison. And like I said, by the time I was able to get permission, which was a whole other ball game, which I don't need to go into, he had died. He had died of cancer. But I really thought that going and seeing him, because what I wanted to do was I wanted to go and see him. And I wanted to tell him what kind of pain and suffering his behavior had caused, not just to my family, but to other families as well. And that I understood that, at that time, and I may have been proven wrong since I was fairly young, but at that time, I believed that, he wasn't born that way. He wasn't born to become this monster. But because of his childhood trauma, it was almost a natural consequence. Because his father was about as brutal of a man as there ever was. And not only was he, did he murder women, he was just, anybody in his path. He was a really bad guy. So was this guy. I'm not saying. But I thought, now, if I could have done that, if I could have gone to him and said those things, and said, I understood why you did it. I understood that it might have been that you didn't have a choice. Of course, we all have choices. But there are things that people do, and there might be things that you've done that you absolutely know are horrendous. You shouldn't have done it. And sometimes you get caught and sometimes you don't. But it's a good thing to ask for mercy. And, I was first talking about this. I was talking about Dave. You all know Dave, my good buddy. And he said it's kind of like a forgiveness thing. And, I think that is true. I think forgiveness, comes, you have to forgive yourself too, before, of your own discretions and transgression, and before you can really forgive other people. But you can try. I felt sad that I didn't get to go talk to this guy, because I had an image of him sitting on death row, maybe finally have gotten some clarity and some, mercy himself from maybe another source. But realizing that, his life had not been one that he might not want to have had, that he realized what he had done. But I wished that I could have shown him mercy. And, the fact that he had died didn't make that, oh no, I didn't get to do that. Now I'll never be able to get rid of this. Well, I was able to get rid of it. I was able to work through it and get it out, get it rid of it. The anger, the absolute anger that I had towards this man. And by unloading that and getting past it, I was able to feel the pain and sadness and, some compassion for this young girl, which I had anyway. If you've ever been through anything like that, you know that you almost feel it. There's that carried feeling thing again I've talked about. But I think those were healing feelings. Sadness, pain, compassion. Those were all feelings that helped healing for me. But I couldn't do that as long as I was angry. With anger, even though it's a great, I also talked about vent writing. It's like, get it out. If you have it, acknowledge it. It's like, I'm really angry right now. Vent write. Get it out. Because after that, you can start to have healing for yourself. The other thing I wanted to talk about, which was also written in the little book here, this little Bible, was grace. And grace is getting what you don't deserve. Now, I mentioned before that, I got sober during that time, and I was new and sober, so I wasn't really sure how to manage life on life's terms yet. And so I had a sponsor and a therapist, and they both helped me through it. It was a horrid experience. And, it was going on while we didn't know where she was for 3 years. And then it went on for another 3 years after that in a really intense way. And, one of the things I heard in AA a lot was this idea that there but for the grace of God. And you wonder, okay, what exactly does that mean? It meant that maybe I don't deserve to feel serene. I don't deserve to be sober. I don't deserve when I was able to get sober, get help, and move on with my life and, have a pretty good life. That some people never got a chance to have that. And so the grace part was that I could have been a person that wasn't able to get sober, that wasn't able to get help and understanding and even love from people during that time. And so the idea that I got what I didn't deserve. Now, who knows if I deserved it or not, but I certainly wasn't asking for it. And I certainly did feel like at the time that I didn't deserve joy and happiness. I'd caused enough pain and suffering in my life that up to that point that I didn't think I deserved anything but, having pain and suffering thrown back at me. And I had that for sure. It wasn't fun, but being able to get sober when I had friends that never did, and they died of the disease of addiction one by one, from one thing or another, that I, for the grace. Now, in AA, they call it grace God. I just say there but for grace, because grace meant that I got something that I may not have deserved. And that was peace and serenity and people in my life that helped me along the way. And so I felt very grateful about that. And even when I'm talking about it, I feel grateful again. Having survived those years and knowing that other people did not, and not having survived, but also being able to have a pretty nice life. Without sobriety, I wouldn't have a wonderful son who has, who's the father of my little grandson that you've also heard about, and my other grandson who will be born in a month. Just, when you think about what's important in your life, what you have had, what you've gotten that maybe you didn't deserve. Think about that. I think, one of the aspects of spiritual life is humility. And, I believe that this sense of mercy and grace are really important pieces of humility, because they constantly remind us that we are just grains of sand in a bigger universe. Whatever you believe that consists of, our life on this planet is so minimal. Our time is so minimal that what we do every day, what we say every day, we need to think about it before we put it out there. Like I've said before, to my knowledge, there is no thought police. So you can think whatever you want. And, your thoughts aren't going to, you're not going to be held accountable for your thoughts. But let me tell you this, your brain will remind you of your thoughts, and your thoughts create emotion. And so if your thoughts are always negative and angry and I want to get that person or whatever, then your feelings will follow. And those feelings may cause you, and those thoughts, going back to those thoughts, may cause you to have consequences that you're not even aware that you have, like depression, anxiety, anger issues. So finding a way to deal with those difficult emotions and difficult thoughts is really important. And I can tell you that, like I've said before, there's a 12-step program for almost everybody. And if for all the many reasons that I've heard people not take advantage of that, if I would just say, find an idea. So like, okay, just about everybody can go to an Al-Anon meeting. I'll bet there is not a single person on this planet, well, maybe one or two, that haven't been touched by somebody else's alcoholism. If you or, members of your family have been touched by somebody's alcoholism, you can go to Al-Anon. And, in those programs, they're free, they're everywhere, they're online now. So if you're, waking up in the middle of the night, feeling angry or resentful or something, get online and go to a meeting. There's also therapy. There's also, your spirituality. If you are honestly in your spiritual beliefs, those issues I just talked about have a place. Search it. Find how to feel at peace again. So, mercy and grace.
Thank you for listening to Healing Your Family Legacy here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. Healing Your Family Legacy is copyright 2023, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The SoulWorks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. SoulWorks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the SoulWorks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.